This is a guide to take soil samples from your lawn or your garden, and the way that soil samples is taken is extremely important, as the information that you'll get back from your soil test will only be as good as the samples that you send for analysis. In this video, I'm going to be showing you a step-by-step guide on how to take good quality samples from your garden and all the tools and equipment that you're going to need to be able to do that. Soil samples at a lab can be a great way to get a really clever insight into the texture and the macronutrients of your soil in order to give you more informed decisions on how you can get the most from your lawn or garden. First of all, I want to talk to you about what do I need to do to get good soil samples. The first step is you're going to need some sort of tooling to get the soil out of the ground. There's a couple of different ways you can do this, and what I've got in my hand here is actually a hollow tine aerator fork, which I've dropped a link for in the description down below. And this one's particularly good because it's got open fronted tines and you can pull the sample out the front of those tines and send it off for analysis. If you don't have some of that more complicated equipment, you can just use a spade or a trowel to dig the soil out of the ground, and that'll work just as well. Second up, you're going to need some sort of sandwich bag or clear plastic bag to drop the soil samples in, and a Sharpie to write your names and your sample locations and dates. And then next up, you're going to need a pair of gloves. Before I get to step 2, it's Garden and Lawn Care Guy here. If you're new to my channel, please like this video and consider subscribing to my channel for more great DIY garden tips. Step 2 is about how to collect a good soil sample. To start with, you need to prepare a sterile Ziploc bag, such as a sandwich bag, for each of the sites where samples are to be taken. If you're only doing one garden, then that'll be one site sample that's needed, and each bag should be labelled up using a permanent marker with the name, the sample site, location and the date. In most cases where you're after general sampling, it may prove beneficial to plan for a multiple number of samples from different parts of your garden, and this is going to give a best statistical representation of the different soil across the whole of the garden. The best way to do this is by something called a W transect, and in this case I'm going to be taking samples from the two corners and moving in a W pattern across the lawn. Taking a bird's eye view of the garden, that's going to be a W shape across the patterns of 1 site, 2, 3, 4 and 5. These are the sites that I'm going to take my samples from, and in the next section I'm going to show you just how much samples you need to get a good result. Using an auger or the trowel, you want to be taking samples of a depth anywhere between 2 to 10 centimeters. If you're using the spade, dig a V-shaped hole to the sample depth and then cut a thin slice with a garden knife or a clean bladed instrument. Remove the surface section of the sample that may contain grass, debris and organic matter. This may affect the analysis. Then you want to aggregate the mix of samples into a clean plastic bucket or bag, and if you're planning on having a comprehensive biological chemical analysis, you should aim to collect around 500 grams or 1 litre of soil and roots from the sample area. As I'm taking 5 samples at each of the points on the W sample, that's going to be around 100 grams from each of the areas, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, and that 5 samples of 100 grams is going to give me a 500 gram mix. This is roughly what 100 grams look like in my soil, so it's around say 2, 4, 6, 8, around 10 cores. But this is going to vary depending on your type of soil and the moisture content and other factors, but roughly I worked out it's around a good handful's worth of soil is 100 grams in my case. If you're testing for mycorrhizal analysis, you need to ensure that there are tree and plant roots present in the prepared sample, and often it's better to sample tree roots as a separate process, collecting fresh and living roots from the upper soil fraction. Collecting an adequate amount of roots from throughout the sample area is vital for achieving accurate information, and it may require collection of a minimum of 5 or 6 root fragments of approximately 5 centimeters each. So here you can see the samples that I've collected from the lawn, and I want to break off the top thatch layer, which has got grass and any thatch and organic matter there, and just break that bit off and chuck the rest of it into the bowl, ready to be sent off for soil analysis. If you're working in a commercial setting or you have a particularly large area to sample from, you may need to look at storing the samples in a cool bag, but for most domestic settings, you'll probably be able to get your samples, put them in the bag and send them straight off. You do need a little bit of planning here, because you don't want the samples to dry out or be exposed to sunlight, because a fresh sample sent right off to the lab when it's ready to receive it is going to give you more accurate results to one that's had chance to dry out in the sunlight. It's also recommended to send your samples off not during the weekend, so try to time it earlier on in the week. You can send the sample next day delivery so it can be stored in the right way or tested right away to give the best results possible. So now I've separated all my samples with the organic matter on the left that I'm going to discard, and the soil in the pot that I'm going to send off for analysis. I want to include a sheet of paper in the sample envelope listing all the different types of samples included. You might also want to write on the back any additional information for reference, such as the date that you took the sampling on, any specific conditions that you saw on that day, whether it was wet or water saturation levels, and a rough approximation of the temperature. I made a little bit of a mistake with mine, because I should have written on the bag before I put the soil in, which is a lot easier. And I'm just going to write on the front here my name, garden and lawn care guy, and the date. And I'd also suggest writing on both sides of the bag, just in case one of the sides gets damaged or it rubs off. That way there's no chance of the sample not being able to link back to you. So here's my sample, and let's run it off to the local post office, and let's see what we can do. So this is my local garden centre, which has also got a post office inside it, and I've posted the samples with first delivery ready for tomorrow. On the next video, I'm going to be having the owner of the actual laboratory on the video, where we're going to discuss amendments and improvements that I can make to my soil in order to get better results for my grass. So if you're interested in understanding how the different types of nutrients and your soil type can affect the quality of your results, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel and turn the notification bell on. Also, leave me a comment down below of why you think you may need a soil test in your garden. Thanks for watching this video. You can subscribe to the channel by clicking the face in the middle of the screen, and there's 2 videos that I thought you might like linked on the left hand side.